when I first moved into my little slice of suburban paradise in Franklin, Tennessee, I thought I had struck gold. The houses had that modern farmhouse look with big porches, long driveways, and wide lawns. Though the mortgage payment made me sweat a bit every month, I told myself it was worth it for peace and quiet. But the real treasure, the heartbeat of my new life, was not the house. It was my pride and joy, a deep midnight blue classic Chevrolet Camaro. Restored, custom, and polished until the paint shone like wet sky at night. That car was not just steel and rubber. It was how I celebrated making it through years of double shift, student loans, and ramen dinners. My therapy. My joyride. My reward. I was not some reckless driver tearing through the cul-de-sac like a wannabe drag racer. No. I was that guy who idled home from work at 5:30. Windows cracked. Engine humming low. Camaro never broke 15 miles an hour inside the gates. Never played loud music. Never so much as squealed a tire. Still, somehow, that car lit a fuse in a very particular neighbor. Her name was Karen. She was the newly minted president of our neighborhood homeowners association. Karen had one of those faces you could map on a brochure for Southern charm, always smiling, always waving, but behind the polite nods and pearls. She burned with energy that did not rest well. A day she marched through the neighborhood like a sheriff without a badge, wagging her clipboard at forgotten trash cans and garden gnomes that fell outside prescribed guideline. By night, she patrolled in her spotless pearl-white Cadillac Escalade, driving as though every squirrel along the curb was a personal insult. She was less a neighbor and more a sitcom character you could not invent if you tried. And apparently, my Camaro flipped some hidden switch in her. It began with a note slapped under my windshield wipers one quiet Sunday morning. Not the welcome to the neighborhood. Stop by for lemonade kind of neighborly note. This one was printed in block letters on bright pink paper that still smelled like perfume. Your vehicle threatens the safety of the community. It is too loud, too aggressive, and creates anxiety for our children. Remove it within 2 weeks or further action will be necessary. I laughed so hard I spilled half my coffee across the hood. A menace to society, my Camaro barely topped above idle in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Karen herself powered through with 200 pounds of machinery every evening, swerving one-handed while yelling at landscapers for leaving the grass 1/4 inch too tall. I snapped a picture of the note, posted it with the sarcastic caption, Karen Chronicles Entry 1, and figured that would be the end of it. A silly neighborhood flare-up. But then came the second week, and that was when the story turned from comedy to chaos. It was a Tuesday morning, mid-April. Bright sky. Birds bickering in the tree. I stepped outside at 6 with my travel mug, ready to head downtown for work. Except the second I reached the driveway, I froze so sharp the coffee barely made it to my lips. My Camaro, my baby, was gone. Well, not gone in the sense of being stolen. It was worse. Utterly destroyed. The windows were shattered into jagged little diamonds across the pavement. Whole sections of paint had been clawed away, like someone dragged metal chains down both doors. All 4 tires were slashed flat. The rims bent inward like folded paper. The hood had dents so deep it looked like someone had danced across it with steel boots. My breath left me in one cold wave. I had poured years into building that car from frame to finish, and now it looked like a junkyard reject. While I stood there, refusing to blink so I could convince myself the wreckage was just a nightmare, neighbor Jason shuffled over in sweatpants, clutching his energy drink like a lifeline. He looked half awake. Voice low. Hey man, I saw something last night. Pretty sure it was Karen and that teenager who helps with her yard. They were messing with your car. Thought it was weird, but figured they were just, moving it or something. Moving it as though smashing glass with a hammer was the same as parking it properly. I bit back a laugh. It came out bitter, not amused. Jason smirked nervously and retreated back inside, leaving me alone with the wreckage. But see, what Karen had not counted on was my one quiet obsession: security camera. Not the bulky, obvious ones. Hidden ones. Small. Sleek, discreet. Like the one tucked inside my porch lantern. He had installed it mostly for fun after watching one too many Porch Pirate caught on tape videos. But now that little camera was my golden ticket. I headed inside, opened my laptop, and there it was in full high definition. At 2:17 in the morning, and the recording showed Karen marching into my driveway in her pink pajamas patterned with pineapple. And right behind her came the teenage landscaper, carrying what looked like a toolbox the size of a suitcase. Karen waved a hammer like she was leading a parade, shouting things I could just barely make out. This is justice, protecting the children. Then swing, glass went flying. She swung again, screeching every time she landed a blow. It was less a crime, more a one-woman amateur theater act of frustration. The moment the video paused on her face, red, sweaty, eyes wild, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I did not cry. I did not scream. I smiled. Because the car was already gone, but Karen's reputation, her arrogance, her supposed authority, that could be shredded even more brutally than my Camaro had been, and I had the evidence to burn it all down. That same evening, my laptop folder was bursting with enough ammunition to level Karen's entire HOA empire. Timestamped footage. Multiple angles. Jason's half-baked eyewitness statement, and screenshots of every short-tempered neighborhood email she had blasted out regarding dangerous vehicles lurking in our streets. If my Camaro was toast, at least I could salvage dignity from the ashes. I handed over everything to the Franklin Police Department the next morning. The officer reviewed the files with one eyebrow arched so high it nearly disappeared into his hairline. He replayed the hammer swing in slow motion until even he chuckled. Well, he finally muttered, she is not even trying to hide. No mask. Have no gloves. Just pajamas and rage. Classic Karen. Of course. Played the victim once the police reached her door. She sobbed to the officer about being a community protector, about how my Camaro was secretly a weapon waiting to mow down toddlers, about how she had warned everyone for months. She even tried to paint herself as a hero for stopping a missile on wheels. Never mind that the so-called missile had been parked beneath a maple tree for 3 days straight. Meanwhile, the HOA scrambled in full panic. I received a stiffly formal apology email from the board, stiffly distancing themselves from Karen's actions. This does not reflect our values, they wrote. But Karen was not backing down. No. She began weaponizing neighborhood newsletters, painting me as a reckless speed demon who endangered every block, and even adding cartoon clip art of race cars to emphasize the point. She printed some of these flyers and stuffed them into mailboxes like propaganda leaflets from a dictator. My lawyer, God bless him, was thrilled. He rubbed his hands like it was Christmas. Between property damage, trespassing, harassment, and outright defamation, he said, I had the legal equivalent of a gourmet buffet to choose from. So yes, we filed a civil lawsuit. The moment the court date landed, my confidence grew like wildfire. Karen strutted into the courthouse with her signature clipboard under one arm and zero attorney by her side. That alone should have told her she was about to meet disaster. She clutched a sad stack of blurry pictures of my Camaro parked harmlessly in my driveway, muttering under her breath like a conspirator. The judge looked equal parts baffled and entertained as she attempted to present her case. When asked directly if she had vandalized the car, Karen puffed her chest and declared, I was doing what the board should have done months ago. I neutralized the threat. Neutralized. Like she was a Navy operative, not a pajama-clad resident in cul-de-sac suburbia. The courtroom went so still you could practically hear the court reporter's jaw drop. That was when I knew no matter the cost, no matter the paperwork, this was a story ending in my favor. Karen had confused authority with immunity, and she was about to learn the world's hardest lesson, underscore. The trial unfolded like pure theater. The lawyer opened PowerPoint with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for championship football games. First slide, a perfect screenshot of Karen mid-swing with that hammer, pineapple pajamas on full display. One man in the gallery coughed into his fist, trying not to laugh. The judge blinked slowly, like he could not quite believe the absurdity. Slide after slide. Email after email. Piece of evidence after piece of evidence, it was all a landslide. My attorney even added a glossy print of the flyer where Karen labeled me Franklin's Fast and Furious Embarrassment. The judge held it up, squinting. Mrs. Karen, how did you write this? She shot back dramatically. Out of context, the judge tilted his glasses lower. Ma'am, it is your handwriting. Meanwhile, Karen fought to keep her narrative alive. She went on tirades about horsepower, danger, and moral responsibility. She compared my Camaro to a wild animal, insisted no child could ever sleep peacefully with a beast lurking 2 doors down, and even suggested banning all sport-style vehicles from the HOA entirely. The longer she spoke, the deeper the courtroom drowned in disbelief. When it was my turn, I came prepared like a student eager to impress. I carried GPS logs showing my car never climbed above 15 miles per hour in the neighborhood. I had decibel readings comparing the roar of my engine versus Karen's oversized Cadillac Escalade. Spoiler, hers was louder, and I had 3 different neighbors, none particularly fond of me, on written record claiming they had never once heard so much as a squeal or rev from my driveway. Myth busted. Karen. By the end of testimonies, it was not even suspenseful. The judge sighed long and slow, then leaned back with both hands folded. This, he announced, is among the strangest acts of vandalism this court has reviewed. Nonetheless, the evidence is overwhelming. Silence swept the room like a curtain drop. Karen gripped her clipboard so tight I swear I could hear the plastic bend. Mrs. Karen is found liable for full damages to the plaintiff's property. Replacement costs of the vehicle including upgrades, court fees, and restitution for harassment and defamation. If a verdict could sing, that one was gospel. 2 weeks later, when the dust settled and the checks cleared, the driveway became the site of poetic vengeance. Delivery day rolled in with a transporter truck, and off it came the newest generation of Camaro, painted deeper blue than the ocean on a stormy night. Sleeker, sharper, dressed up with crimson brake calipers and stitched leather headrests. I had asked the shop to add one personal touch, embroidered neatly where only I would see it, the words, "Thanks, Karen." The cost of the car, plus legal fees, plus Finn, had gutted Karen's finances clean. Word around the community said she had to refinance her home and send her Cadillac packing just to stay afloat. Her husband resigned from the HOA board in quiet shame. And the landscaper who once tagged along in her nighttime escapades now refused to work with her ever again. Even her poor toy poodle developed stress-induced bald spots that the neighborhood vet diplomatically described as domestic turbulence. The first afternoon I rolled the Camaro slowly, 10 miles per hour, sharp as ever through the cul-de-sac. Karen stood on her porch clutching a watering can. She froze as though turned to stone, staring me down with the expression of a video game villain realizing the final boss had respawned, stronger. And because the universe could not resist sweet comedy, I played light jazz over the speakers at the lowest volume. Each note was a victory lap. At the next HOA meeting, Karen attempted to claw back the last scraps of her reputation. She claimed she had acted in good faith, exaggerated that the entire judicial system was biased against safety defenders, and insisted she was still the best candidate to lead the board. Denise from down the street walked in with literal popcorn. Every single member voted to strip Karen of her presidency by unanimous show of hands. The looks they gave her said everything words could not. She stormed out halfway through discussion like a deposed monarch watching her throne crumble. Life since then has been calm. Karen now avoids my property like it is radioactive. She no longer makes eye contact at the mailbox. And if I so much as wave, she turns sharp and fast the opposite way. My porch lantern camera has her on record, never stepping closer than 20 feet to my driveway again. As for me, I framed that very first pink note, the one where she demanded I remove my Camaro, and hung it right beside a still image of her hammer swing, right above the garage, right next to the car, like trophies in a larger game. And sometimes, when I sit inside the new Camaro staring at those frames, I remind myself of something simple but important: titles mean nothing without respect. Calling yourself HOA president does not give you the right to decide who belongs, what joy someone can own, or how they can live. Karen lost, not because of her hammer, not because of my cameras, not even because of the money. She lost because she believed imaginary rules mattered more than respecting another person. And when you let bitterness write your laws, you end up choking on the very constitution you invent. The car gleams beneath the porch light, quiet and powerful. And I smile, turning the key just enough to hear it rumble low. Karen may have cracked the glass, but I drove away with the victory. And this time, it was paid for in full.